every lawyer always puts their client's interest first and is always a paragon of virtue. All right. I couldn't even say that with a straight face. But the vast majority of attorneys serve their clients with honor and distinction. Well, the majority. A majority of lawyers, no. Some lawyers serve their clients with honor and distinction. And yet, lawyers have long been the target of jokes and media portrayals that depict us as a uniquely unethical occupation.
And as for your case, don't you worry. I've argued in front of every judge in the state, often as a lawyer.
But even though most lawyers choose the straight and narrow path, others have broken bad. So today, let's not talk about those good lawyers you never hear about. Let's talk about when lawyers have gone wild. So let's start with the lawyer who defrauds, yes, a 9-year-old girl, with Grandpa's help. Now, one of the cardinal duties of legal representation is undivided loyalty to clients. Under this ethical mandate, lawyers have a legal obligation not to enrich themselves to the client's detriment, and to zealously advocate for a client's interests above our own personal desires. But that's exactly what Vincent J. Tremarco Jr. did not do. He's a Long Island litigator who conspired with client Gary Erickson to slowly steal $2 million of inheritance from Erickson's 9-year-old granddaughter and Tremarco's client, Rebecca Schaefer. Now, Ms. Schaefer was set to receive millions from a federal wrongful death settlement involving her father, who died at age 20 in jail while serving a misdemeanor for drug charge. From April 2012 through August 2017, Tremarco and the co-conspirator grandfather orchestrated a scheme to steal millions of dollars from a fatherless child. They purchased luxury vehicles, including a Ferrari 430 Spider for $200,000 and a Jaguar XKR convertible for $57,000, and they spent over $600,000 to purchase several properties throughout Suffolk County, New York. And they even invested over $800,000 of ill-gotten gains in the Emporium, a now defunct nightclub and music venue in New York that Tremarco was at times part owner of. And while Mr. Tremarco must have gotten his legal training from the Lionel Hutz School of Law, clearly the grandfather learned his family skills from Lucille Bluth.
Oh, don't give me that look. I happen to be a more caring mother than most.
And in October 2017, federal prosecutors unveiled a 19-count indictment against Tremarco for conspiracy to commit mail fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and other charges related to the multi-million-dollar theft. Grandfather Erickson, who died before the investigation was completed, was named as an unindicted co-conspirator. But in October 2020, Tremarco pleaded guilty to the charges. In announcing the sentence, U.S. Attorney Breon Peace outlined why Tremarco's breach of his fiduciary duty to his client was so egregious. Quote, Tremarco's theft of a 7-figure inheritance from a child so that he could purchase luxury vehicles and invest in real estate is a disgraceful breach of trust and betrayal of his time-honored duties as an attorney. His conduct is an affront to the courts, the bar, and the community at large. Today's sentence should serve as a warning that this office will prosecute corrupt attorneys who abuse their positions and break the law for personal gain. And in December 2021, Tremarco was sentenced to 57 months in prison, ordered to pay restitution of $1.5 million and forfeit the amount of $1.5 million. And shortly after sentencing, the New York Grievance Committee, which regulates attorney conduct in the state, retroactively disbarred Tremarco as of his October 2020 guilty plea. But it's not just lawyers who have gone bad, it's also judges. And that takes us to the shirtless judge who sent explicit photos of himself to the bailiff and then impregnated a witness in his judicial chambers. Now, judges have this reputation for being stuffy, humorless old men in robes, but in the case of Judge Wade Harper McCree, who is neither old, stuffy, nor humorless, he would still be a judge if he had kept his robe on. Because in 2012, Judge McCree was serving on the Third Circuit Court in Wayne County, Michigan, where he specialized in sexual misconduct cases. No, I'm not making that up. You would think that with that experience, he would have known better than to send a bare-chested photo of himself to a female bailiff. This is inappropriate workplace conduct, and neither the bailiff nor her husband found it amusing. The judge, who was also married, was confronted with a printout of the photo by local news by replying, "Hot dog, yep, that's me." McCree, whose father served under President Jimmy Carter as the second African-American Solicitor General in United States history, was unbothered by the misconduct allegations, stating, quote, "I've got no shame in my game." Good God, man. But he later admitted to sending the photo to other women. Now, Judge McCree might have been able to weather this sexting scandal, but his inability to keep it in his robe led to a spectacular public downfall. While presiding over a child support case in 2013, Judge McCree repeatedly used his judicial chambers for extramarital trysts with a witness in his case.
Between May and November of 2012, did you engage in sexual conduct with Judge McCree?
Yes, I did.
Sneak the witness a cell phone in violation of security protocols so that he could regularly text sexed her during trial, got the witness pregnant, urged her to terminate the pregnancy, and then repeatedly lied about the episode under oath.
No, it's salesman's puffery.
Not surprisingly, the judge was formally removed from the bench in 2014, barred from being a judge for 6 years. I don't know why only 6 years. And following a 3-year suspension of his law license, the shirtless judge's license was reinstated in 2020. So now that McCree has been given a second chance at a legal practice, perhaps going forward he could stand to have just a little more shame in his game. But that takes us to the caveman lawyer who stalked his ex-girlfriend, repeatedly shoots her office with a crossbow, and got disbarred for it. Now, what sets modern man apart from Neanderthal ancestors is the ability to work out disputes using words instead of brute force. Sometimes. But in the case of Stephen A. Weinkauf, this California caveman lawyer decided that the way to address his hurt feelings toward his lawyer ex-girlfriend was not to use his words, but his crossbow. And it cost him his law license, his reputation, and millions of dollars. Because in the early 2010s, Weinkauf began a romantic relationship with fellow attorney Adriana, last name redacted, when they worked together in the San Francisco County Public Guardian's office. The relationship ended in December 2013, and while the girlfriend moved on, Weinkauf did not. The girlfriend installed security cameras at her law office after finding crossbow arrows shot into her building's windows in April, June, and August of 2015. And in January 2017, surveillance videos showed someone in a red Jeep firing a gun at the building, cracking a window. 5 days later, the same red Jeep drove by at night and fired another crossbow at the office, and the girlfriend was able to identify her assailant as none other than Weinkauf. Weinkauf was arrested and convicted of felony stalking with enhanced penalties for using a deadly weapon. The state bar deemed this offense moral turpitude, and Weinkauf was disbarred in 2020. That same year, Weinkauf was found civilly liable for stalking, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and domestic violence against his ex-girlfriend. At trial, Weinkauf admitted to shooting the crossbow one time, but denied the other incidents, because it was some other crossbow-wielding maniac. But not surprisingly, the jury did not believe Weinkauf's claim of another crossbower menacing the ex-girlfriend and awarded her $1.3 million in damages plus over $900,000 in attorney's fees and costs. In March 2022, the California Court of Appeals upheld the multi-million-dollar judgment. The takeaway here, though, is while there may be hypothetically situations where a crossbow can solve your problems, a broken heart is not one of those things. Obviously, for that, you need a trebuchet. But that takes us to the Florida judge who throws down with the public defender and gets thrown off the bench. Because when a headline begins with Florida man or Florida woman, you know you're about to read something that's equal parts bonkers, hilarious, and just a dash of, I'm so glad that that's not me. But when the headline is Florida judge, well, it's all those things ramped up to 11. And such was the tale of John C. Murphy, a Florida judge who decided to settle a procedural dispute with a public defender in the most Floridian way possible by challenging him to a fistfight. Now that I think about it, I mean, challenging someone to a duel is probably the most Floridian way, but fistfight is a close second.
I demand satisfaction! Oh! I challenge you to a duel!
A duel?
Anyway, on June 2nd, 2014, Assistant Public Defender Andrew Weinstock and Brevard County Judge John Murphy were engaged in a war of words over Mr. Weinstock's refusal to waive his client's right to a speedy trial, which is a very routine matter that is typically resolved amicably in open court, with words. But not this judge. No, when Weinstock refused to waive his client's speedy trial rights, Judge Murphy exploded.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just beat your ass.
But Weinstock stood his ground against the irate jurist. And that's when Judge Murphy decided to turn his pretrial hearing into a trial by combat. Unfortunately, as Weinstock would soon see, Judge Murphy, a former colonel in the Army and Afghanistan veteran, had plenty of experience settling disputes on the battlefield. Weinstock follows Judge Murphy out of the courtroom and into the hallway as sounds of a struggle can be heard off camera. And according to reports, a sheriff's deputy witnessed the men gripping one another around the collars of their suit jackets while screaming. The Florida judge allegedly punched Weinstock in the face before a pair of deputies broke up the fight. Weinstock was reassigned to another courtroom to avoid a second confrontation. When Judge Murphy returned to the courtroom, because this is Florida, he was greeted with laughter and thunderous applause.
I will catch my breath eventually. Man, I'm an old man.
But with Weinstock no longer present to defend his clients, Judge Murphy obtained speedy trial waivers from Weinstock's unrepresented defendants, probably because they had just seen the judge pummel the crap out of their lawyer.
In bird culture, this is considered a dick move.
But it's also what we lawyer guys refer to as a huge ethical violation. Judge Murphy issued a public apology, enrolled in anger management classes, and took a 4-week paid leave of absence and was reassigned from criminal to civil cases. Weinstock resigned in protest after public defender Blaise Tratus declared his support for Judge Murphy's return to the bench. Judge Murphy went viral for the video and was dubbed the, quote, fighting judge, but not everyone was amused. In 2015, the Supreme Court of Florida removed Judge Murphy from the bench, overruling the state disciplinary board, which, again, I can't emphasize this enough because it was Florida, only had recommended a 4-month suspension and a $50,000 fine. The court acknowledged, quote, it is without question that, except for the June 2nd, 2014 incident, Judge Murphy had been a good judge. Nevertheless, the court concluded that Judge Murphy had, quote, surrendered his privilege to serve as a judge after threatening violence against the attorney appearing before him, fighting that attorney, and then inducing the attorney's unrepresented clients to accept speedy trial waivers. Quote, Judge Murphy's total lack of self-control became a national spectacle, an embarrassment not only to the judge himself, but also to Florida's judicial system. Given the clear erosion of public confidence in the judiciary caused by his misconduct, removal is an appropriate sanction. And I have to say, if there's one takeaway from this case, it's that not even the honor of being an elected judge is enough to overcome the force that compels residents of the Sunshine State to transform into Florida Man. But that takes us to a couple of lawyers you might have heard something about.
Good evening, America. We are Mark and Patty McCloskeys.
They are the Missouri personal injury lawyers who spent decades suing everyone for everything. Then they waved their guns at BLM protesters, became MAGA celebrities, and then they sued even more people. Now, personal injury attorneys are often referred to as ambulance chasers, due to a reputation for filing costly, frivolous suits. But in the case of Missouri personal injury lawyers Patricia and Mark McCloskeys, it turns out all you need to do is basically look at them the wrong way, and they'll sue you.
I'll sue ya. I'll take all your money. I'll sue ya if you even look at me funny.
Or they'll point their guns at your face.
He'll sue ya. He'll put a gun in your face. She'll shoot ya, probably because of your race.
Now, you've likely seen this viral photo from June 2020 when the McCloskeys pointed firearms at BLM protesters marching past their St. Louis home. But that's not their first public spectacle. Here's how Jeremy Kohler of the St. Louis Dispatch described the couple following a review of public records. Quote, the McCloskeys are almost always in conflict with others, typically over control of private property, what people can do on that property, and whose job it is to make sure they do it. Now, among their many, many legal fights, it includes suing to obtain their home, a castle originally built by Adolphus Busch, co-founder of Anheuser-Busch, suing a man who sold them a Maserati they claimed was supposed to come with a box of hard-to-find parts, and fighting their HOA to acquire 1,100 square feet of a triangle of lawn designated as a common area for the neighborhood. Now, one notable McCloskey dispute bordered on cartoon villainy. In 2013, Mark McCloskey allegedly destroyed beehives placed outside his mansion's northern wall by the neighboring Jewish Central Reform congregation, then left a note saying that if the mess wasn't cleaned up quickly, he'd seek a restraining order and attorney's fees. The congregation was planning to harvest the honey and apples on the property for the Jewish New Year, and according to Rabbi Susan Tolv, quote, the children were crying in school. It was part of our curriculum. Now, Mark McCloskey denied destroying the hives, and a Snopes investigation was unable to confirm who killed the bees.
No, not the bees! Not the bees!
Now, flash forward to June 2020 when a group of several hundred BLM demonstrators marched on the home of St. Louis Mayor Linda Crewson. Mayor Crewson had triggered fierce backlash when, during a Facebook Live post, she read the full names and addresses of George Floyd protesters who had written letters encouraging her to defund police departments. Critics accused her of doxing critics to open them up to public harassment and retaliation. And on June 28th, protesters marched toward Crewson's home along a street called Portland Place, which is blocked with heavy iron gates and signs marked private property. But one of the houses on Portland Place is a Renaissance-style palazzo owned by, you guessed it, Patricia and Mark McCloskey. When the demonstrators crossed paths with the McCloskeys, the pair countered the protesters' First Amendment rights by threatening them with their Second Amendment rights. Mr. McCloskey stepped onto his patio holding a rifle and yelled, "Get the hell out of my neighborhood and private property, get out." After McCloskey brandished his rifle, Mrs. McCloskey then came out of the door barefoot wielding a small silver pistol and aimed it directly at the demonstrators. The entire confrontation lasted about 12 minutes, after which the protesters converged on Mayor Crewson's home for several hours of protest. But the McCloskeys immediately became the couple who launched launched 1,000 memes. And lawsuits, because the McCloskeys sued the photographer who took their viral photograph, the online retailer who used that photo to sell products with their unflattering captions, and while the couple became MAGA celebrities,
they were going to be beat up badly and the house was going to be totally ransacked and probably burned down like they tried to burn down churches.
In June 2021, the McCloskeys pleaded guilty to misdemeanor offenses. Mark for 4th-degree assault with a $750 fine, and Patricia for harassment with a $2,000 fine. The couple was required to surrender their guns for destruction. And Mark McCloskey wasted no time in blaming the person actually responsible for all of this, George Soros. But in August of 2021, Missouri Governor Mike Parson pardoned the McCloskeys, which he had promised to do if they were convicted. The McCloskeys, true to form, then immediately sued the city, the sheriff, and the state, alleging the pardon entitled them to have their guns returned and fines refunded. But in February of 2022, the Missouri Supreme Court subjected the McCloskeys' law licenses to a 1-year probationary period. After the ruling, Mark McCloskey said that he was disappointed the court disciplined him at all, and announced he was considering asking the U.S. Supreme Court to review the case. Now, if you're a terrible lawyer trying to evade public scrutiny, or just a normal person trying to boost your privacy, try today's sponsor, NordVPN. Because you know that incognito mode actually isn't incognito, right? Well, with NordVPN's no logs policy, your internet service provider doesn't get to snoop on what you're searching, and neither does NordVPN. With Nord, you can surf the web anonymously, and your location stays private. So I can log into my favorite streaming sites and see the libraries that are available in other countries, and that's just one use case. And when I'm out of the country and I try to connect to my Gmail or a bunch of other things that I'm logged into, all those accounts would usually freak out and tell me that I'm being hacked by someone in whatever location that I'm actually in. So now I just reroute my connection to the US and my Gmail and everything else is happy. And that's one reason to use NordVPN, but NordVPN has become this way bigger threat protection tool too. It has all these great features like blocking malware and malicious ad trackers. It's a great tool and all this is incredibly easy to use. So if you'd like to give NordVPN a try, click on the link that's on screen right now or down in the description to get a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months free with a huge discount. And it's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Again, get a 2-year plan plus 4 free months at a huge discount by clicking on the link below. And after that, click on this playlist over here for more Legal Eagle, or I'll see you in court.